feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank. Want to put it all together, this is big things. Doing big things. We ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roadie 2016. Like a foam to die, putting me in charge. I'm a general from the front, I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap never. Going hard as ever.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode here on the Shrimp Tank, powered by Celsius Beverage. This is your first time tuning in. Catch all our episodes up on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com. And every week we come to you from the Florida Atlantic University's College of Business. We get the opportunity to collaborate with all these students that are taking an entrepreneurship class. I'm joined by Kevin Cox, who's going to share some details about our guests and what's on the horizon at FAU right now.
Yeah, we got a ton of stuff going on. The deadline finally passed for our annual business pitch competition, where we'll give away more than $10,000 of seed funding across 5 different tracks, the most tracks we've ever had this year. We've got the ocean economy, the runway track, the student track, veteran track, and Spanish language track. So we're going to have a big pitch competition, give away some seed funding to some worthy entrepreneurs. That'll be a lot of fun. Last week we had our exchange, and the boot camp program is ongoing, as well as the veterans program, which is great for veterans who want to start or grow their business. But enough about all the exciting things happening around here at Florida Atlantic University and the entrepreneurship area. I want to get right to our guest, very special guest today, Phil Nadel. And instead of introducing Phil, who has a fantastic background, what I'm going to ask him to do is what I try to get all my students to do, and that is to deliver an exceptional elevator pitch. So you know the deal, Phil. You got about 30 to 60 seconds. Tell the students what you're all about.
Sure. I'm the managing director of Forefront Venture Partners. We're an early stage venture capital firm here in Boca. We invest in scalable C to Series B companies that are primarily focused on business to business, but we also do some business to consumer investing. And we do everything we can to help the companies we invest in to grow and to scale.
Okay, Kevin, how do you do?
He did pretty good. I know his story is quite a bit more interesting than that.
Have a feeling. We're going to get into that today, of course.
Yeah, we'll talk about that during the show, but let's play a silly game first.
Yeah, so who's joining us on stage today?
Well, that's Mia. Mia, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hello, listeners. I'm Mia Bello in Mr. Cox's entrepreneurship class. Really happy and excited to be here.
Okay, and like every week we do, we start out with a game show. So come on down and share with us.
I just want to know, is there prize money?
Oh yeah, of course. You get Celsius beverages, and Kevin, of course,
like
just
money.
said he's giving out $10,000 for free. And of course, you know, you run a firm that helps small businesses grow, right, and scale. And maybe we could add to that. And who knows? We'll see. Maybe I could add to that too. Who knows?
All right. My name is JQ. I'll be your game show host today. This is a pretty simple game. I'll provide you with the definition. And you'll buzz in on your little buzzers there and provide me with the term.
Oh, jeez.
The first one to get the term will get the point.
Phil, you ready? This is your first time doing this type of show, I bet. Right?
Yeah, we'll do several rounds, and they'll get a little harder as we go.
Okay.
So let's get
You're
started.
scaring me, JQ.
Yeah, sorry. An organization or enterprising entity engaged in commercial, industrial, or professional activities to provide goods or service in exchange for profit.
Sounds like a business to me.
That's correct.
Nice.
There you go.
Uh-oh. You beat
right.
Kevin. What are we going to do here, Phil?
That was too easy. I let it go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll get harder here.
That's what I did too.
All right. A clear statement explaining how a product or service solves a problem or a customer's situation.
Value proposition.
That's correct. Should have made these a little harder.
This is what Kevin teaches. This is not fair. Okay.
That's true. This is individuals or groups that have an interest in the success of a business, for example, employees, investors, customers, or suppliers. Kevin?
Stakeholders.
That is correct.
Phil, I'm rooting for you. Come on.
Game
Be
is
Kevin.
sweet.
Yeah,
No, it's not. No, it's not.
The process of identifying, assessing, and minimizing potential losses in a business venture.
Due diligence.
Incorrect.
Kevin, come on, go for the steal.
Risk mitigation.
Risk management. I'll give it to you. The ease with which assets can be converted into cash without affecting their market.
Liquidity.
Correct.
Excuse me, JQ. Who's winning?
Oh, I don't know. Do we have a scorekeeper in there? Samuel?
No, he's
I-
not. No,
I won, I
no.
believe.
3-2.
A terrible scorekeeper.
Come on.
Gee. All
Come
right.
on, I got to keep these guys honest.
There you go. All right. The most basic version of a product that can be released to test assumptions.
Minimum viable product.
Correct.
You
MVP.
got, I thought Phil got that one first. you got the buzzer in there?
His buzzer is just better. So
Okay.
It is.
rings.
The
Cheating,
faulty
Phil.
buzzer.
Be careful.
All right. An individual who provides capital to startups.
An angel.
Angel investor. Correct.
These were getting harder. They're getting easier.
I know.
I don't see you ringing in, buddy.
I'm ringing. Phil's got a
Mr. Easy
Phil,
question.
Phil is quick.
The mascot on here.
All right. The exploitation of price or value differentials across markets or contexts
Oh.
without fundamentally altering the underlying product or service.
I don't have it.
Arbitrage.
Correct.
I think we
Good
should be
call.
subtracting one if someone gets it wrong
Yeah,
for the game.
Okay.
rules.
We can do that.
yeah.
My scorekeeper can keep up with that.
Okay.
That puts Phil close to 0.
All right. We've got 3 more here.
Harsh.
The introduction of new ideas, products, services, or processes that create value.
I don't want to get
Come
one
on,
wrong
Mia.
now. I'm already
Come on,
winning.
Mia.
I'm here to support you guys.
I was going to say brainstorming, but that's not it, of course. I don't know.
Invention.
Maybe.
If I get this wrong, Mr. Cox, then I'm -1.
That's
Go
okay.
for it. Go for it. You got to take a risk.
Invention. Mhm.
Anyone else have a guess?
There we go.
I'll give it to you. Innovation.
Okay.
Oh, she's right on it.
Yeah, we'll give you that. Plus
Oh.
one.
Preach.
All right. Starting and growing a business using personal finances.
Bootstrapping.
Correct.
I'm on the
Hey.
board. Finally.
And last question here. The percentage of total sales in an industry that a company controls.
Market share.
Correct.
Do we have a winner? Who is it? Kevin Cox
All
is the
right.
winner.
Right. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Okay, Kevin,
Good job, JQ.
you get this shrimp pillow for your flight. I know you're taking a lot of flights. That is what the winner receives.
Nice.
Can't believe.
Okay. Well, Mia, thanks for joining us on
you.
the
Yeah,
show.
Great job.
Yeah.
You nailed that one question.
Me and you tied.
Invention.
Me and you tied for one. Unfortunately, I didn't get past one this time. Okay, Phil, this part of the show is also always learning about an entrepreneur's background. So start in the early days, right? How did you get into venture capital? How do you start things out in your early career? And then where are you today?
Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, starting when I was a young kid. So when I graduated from a business school, the first thing I did was start a business. And I've started and sold many businesses over the years in various different industries, from finance to publishing to several online companies. And then about 15 years ago, after I sold my last company, I was getting sort of not burned out, but tired of the entrepreneurial grind. And I thought, I still love entrepreneurship and want to help other founders achieve their goals and dreams of starting a business after I had done it several times. And so I thought, well, it would be good to get into venture capital. And what happened sort of at the same time is I was approached by different family members, a couple family members who were starting businesses, and asked for some help, both in terms of advice and funding. So I helped them. That went well. And then it expanded out to like friends, associates, people I knew. And then after doing that for a little while and helping them, I said, okay, I'm just going to do this more officially. And so about 15 years ago, I founded Forefront Venture Partners. It was originally Barbara Corcoran Venture Partners. My partner was Barbara Corcoran at the time. And then about 10 or 11 years ago, we renamed it Forefront Venture Partners. And so we've invested in a few hundred startups, again, raising anywhere between seed and Series B rounds as their initial rounds. We only invest in post-revenue companies, so companies that are already generating revenue. And then we really do try to help them and do everything we can in our power to help them succeed. So we take a very participatory role. It doesn't always mean a board seat, but in terms of advice and counsel, we're always available to our portfolio founders and always helping them to scale the company. And we've had our fair share of success, thankfully. And so I love what I do because I'm still in the entrepreneurial world, and I still get to help founders and startups, but I'm not sort of doing it myself, other than the startup, which is the venture firm that I run.
Can we simplify it a little bit? We have 30 to 40 students where when they hear Series A, Series B, they don't really understand how much money you're really speaking about. And then just use a real example. Select one of the companies maybe they've heard of as an example where they started with an investment from your brand and where they are today, so they really understand full circle.
Trying to think of a brand you might be familiar with. Does anyone know the app called Calm.com?
Yeah.
So that's an investment that we made years ago when they first started raising money, and the vision and the passion that the founders had really resonated with me. There wasn't really much in the market at the time that was like that. Now there are a lot of meditation, relaxation apps, but at the time there weren't. And so we invested in their seed round, which was seed round, if you're not familiar, is sort of the first institutional round or the first round that a company raises beyond their sort of friends and family round. And so they had funded some initial work on the app themselves, the founders did. And then they started to raise a seed round once they started generating some revenue. And we invested in that round and then invested in their next round, which was their Series A. And now they've grown to be a multi-billion-dollar revenue company. So that's an example of one that I'm glad you're familiar with.
Now, do you just give them money and then step to the side, or do you actually come in and support them on different levels?
Well, like I was saying before, we're very participatory.
Yep.
You know, we really try to help our
Yep.
portfolio companies in any way we can. And it's interesting, you know, some of the companies require or want a lot of help, especially when they're young, early on. And some of them are like, no, we're good. And we have it all figured out. And that's fine too. Like we sort of tailor our help to whatever they need or want. So we try not to be too pushy or too much in their face if they don't want that help. But if they want our help, great. We're happy to provide it. And so Calm, you know, they didn't need much help, but we helped out where we could early on, and now they've really blossomed into a very large brand.
I think that's really smart. That's kind of the approach we take with our accelerator right here at FAU. Is like not having a whole bunch of requirements in terms of things they need to attend, access, participate in, but we do have a lot of resources, educational series, and other things to support them for those that do want to tap into it. But there's not necessarily an obligation. It's very much like an a la carte approach because so many startups are so different, right? They come in all shapes and different sizes with different founders, with different levels of experience, different size teams. So finding a one-size-all solution for supporting startups, I've always seen as kind of elusive, and that better it's to be more agile, modular, and adaptable to the needs of the companies. Why don't you tell the class a little bit about one of your startups, right? You were a serial entrepreneur. Maybe you could tell us the story of, I'll give you a couple options, maybe the most successful one or the one that you think they'd find the most interesting.
The one that they'd find most interesting. Let's see. Well,
or the most successful one.
I don't know which one to pick. But one time, this is years ago, sort of pre-internet. I was visiting my mom. She spends the summers up at the Cape Cod in Massachusetts. I was visiting her, and she's a big book lover, but she hated, lugging around so many books. And I said to her, if you could listen to the books on, an MP3 player. Back then, MP3 players were a thing, right? This was, again, like iPhone and pre-internet. I said, if you could listen to on one of these small, like easy to use MP3 players, and I showed her how easy it was. I said, would you listen to audiobooks? And she was like, yeah, I would do that. So what I did was I decided to start a business around this. I got a very inexpensive, totally simple to use MP3 player that like elderly people could easily use. Like it just had like 3 buttons. And what I did is I had the 100 greatest books of all time preloaded on it in audio format. I mean, you would know every one of these titles. They're all classic books in audio format. And I loaded them, jammed them all onto this MP3 player. And I sold the entire collection called the Library of Classics, the entire collection on an MP3 player for $99. And it was a big hit. The older folks loved it. Again, there was no internet. They're not, they didn't have an iPod. They didn't have an iPhone. They didn't have internet. This was an easy way for them to listen to tons of great literature for only $99. Plus they get the MP3 player they could use for anything. And then we started expanding out to other collections, great like speeches of all time and great history books of all time and all kinds of offshoots of that. So that was one that was, and the point of telling you that is that it was sort of like born out of necessity. My mom had this need. She was unhappy with the solution she had, which was lugging around all these books. And I gave her a very simple solution that was this big, that could fit in her purse or her pocket. And she loved it. So
very cool. Who decided the 100 greatest books of all time? Was that like a source? It sounds like it would be controversial to me.
We actually used several different sources and merged them and kind of filtered through. But let me pose a question to the group here. So in coming up with the 100 greatest books of all time, I had in mind a price point, right? I said, I want to produce this. I want to call it the Library of Classics. I want 100 books on MP3 player, but I want to sell it for $99, no more. That's my point. I feel like people aren't going to want to spend more than $100. So I want to keep it $99, and I wanted to make a nice, big, healthy gross margin on it. So how do I get 100 of the greatest books of all time that I could get the rights to and still have a nice margin, $99? Anyone know? After a while, books go into the public domain when their copyrights expire. And then they're free use. Anyone can use them. So the 100 greatest books of all time are classic books that have all passed their copyright period and are in the public domain. And so all of them were free for me to use. All I had to do was get them in audio format, which I managed to do for free as well. So I had all the content for free, and then I just had to source an inexpensive MP3 player. And thanks to my friends in China, that was easy. So that was, but to the source of the books. So it had to be constrained by books that were in the public domain.
Yeah.
But once I could use that constraint, then I used a few different notable sources and picked the 100 greatest books. But I couldn't use too many 1,200 page books because I had limited memory on the device too.
And what was your biggest challenge through all these businesses? Is there always a common point that comes to mind as a common challenge?
It depends on what stage you're at. Initially it's finding product market fit, right? And I knew that that I had a good product, and I knew that from not just my mom, but interviewing other people who were potential users,
Yeah.
potential customers, I knew I had a product that appealed to some group of people. But then trying to prove product market fit on a larger scale, in other words, proving to myself that there were groups of people out there that I could target who were willing to pay for the product. That was the next challenge. And then after that, it was about scaling. It was about how can I acquire customers in an efficient, cost-efficient way, so that I'm not spending so much money on marketing and customer acquisition that I erode all my profits.
Can you speak to that for a sec? Because a lot of times, Kevin sees this a lot. There is product market fit, but then entrepreneurs really struggle on the scaling side,
Yeah.
right? It's really hard to raise capital, right? You know, they're told, oh, just go to events, shake hands, or go to pitch competitions, try to raise capital. And before you know it, they're spending 50% of their work week trying to do that side, working on their pitch deck all the time. And the other side, they're spending marketing it, which today a lot of people obviously use social media, work with creators, sometimes bigger influencers, trying to get a spokesperson, but often they just can't get to that next step. And it's a huge challenge. So when you speak to founders, like, how do you help them get through that part of that challenge, part of their
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Jason. You're right. This, scalability is that's the biggest conundrum, right? That's the tough part. And so we encourage companies. Well, let me just back up. We normally see companies at this stage where they've already raised some money from friends and family, and sometimes from angel investors as well. So they have a product, they're in market, they have some revenue. It could be just a little bit of revenue, but they have some revenue. And then they're trying to scale. So how do they do that? I mean, they've already gotten to that stage where they're in market and have revenue. And the way that they've gotten there is by bootstrapping or really being smart with the way that they invest the limited amount of capital they're able to raise. And you need to get to a stage where you can prove to potential investors that your company, your product is scalable, right? So you need to be able to get enough traction, just enough traction, that you can prove that it's scalable. So for example, if you run a social media campaign with a notable influencer, right? And you're able to show that with just this one influencer, you were able to generate 100 customers, and you paid the influencer $1,000, right? So it cost you $10 per customer. And that $10, you were able to sell a product where you made $50. Mm-hmm. So you had a 5-to-1 ratio, right? So that's a good number. That's a good, what we call lifetime value to customer acquisition cost ratio. Now you can say to an investor, hey, look, if I had some of your money to invest in marketing, I could get 10 or 100 influencers, right? And they could all do the same thing, and I could get $10 per customer across 10 or 100 influencers and have much more traction. So that you put the vision in an investor's head that, okay, I can see that. I can see how it's scalable because you proved it to me with just that one influencer. Now I'm going to give you some money. I'm going to invest some money so you can go out and prove that with 10 or 100. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you often invest more in the character of the founder then, or the data, right? I think we see both sides often with different firms. And of course, some founders, of course, have a great story to share. Like you shared one with, your mother, and you could immediately tell there was a need there. And I think there is a lot of data where people solve a problem, because it's a personal problem.
Yeah,
and of course,
absolutely.
It helps them envision that there's product market fit immediately versus saying, hey, I'm building this product because, I know it's going to, like, this can of Celsius is going to be cool and I want to be in the beverage industry. Like, it's a little different when they just look to seek making money versus solving a problem that touches them, right? So,
well, to address that, I mean, for us, the first part of your question was sort of, are we more concerned with who the founders are versus, what their business model is or what the data is.
Correct.
And it's not, for us, it's not an either or. We're looking at both. If we don't believe in the founder, and see that they have the experience, the passion, the resources, then we're not going to invest. But we also have to believe that the product and the company is scalable. We have to believe in the solution they're providing. So the second part of what you were saying, though, it doesn't have to be a problem that touches them directly, but it's got to be, and this is important, it's got to be a real problem, something that is significant. And they have to have a better solution. Better solution could be cheaper. It could be an easier solution. It could, there are a lot of definitions of better, but it's got to be much better than what's in the market, because they've got to beat out competitors. Almost every market, there are competitors. They've got to beat their competitors. So it's got to be a better solution. And the addressable market has got to be large, right? And that was my one concern with the audio product that I mentioned, the Library of Classics. I was like, well, I don't know how big the market is for this. My mom is one person. Is it really scalable? Like, is there a big enough addressable market? And I proved that to myself by doing some early marketing tests. And so those are some of the things that we look for. And then the other thing, as they start to scale, is we need to know that they can grow in a cost-efficient way. You're able to acquire a customer and make a decent profit on that. They're not investing, too much money in customer acquisition.
Yeah, and all these things are interrelated, right? That's one of the things I try to teach throughout this course. If you're not really solving a genuine problem, or if you don't have a much better solution, that ties right back into your comments about marketing. Then you end up burning through cash because you're just marketing because you have to market so much.
That's
because
right.
It's not meaningfully better or solving a clear and recognized problem. Earlier in the show today, you mentioned Barbara Corcoran, and I noticed a couple of students recognized the name. How did your firm get involved with her? Or what is the backstory of that relationship?
So I had known Barbara before, and before we started the firm, I was helping her with some of her Shark Tank portfolio companies, doing some consulting for her with them, helping them to grow. And when there's a platform called AngelList, and when AngelList sort of launched as a way for angel investors to invest in startups, when that launched, I said to Barbara, hey, there's an opportunity here for us to form a firm where we can invest and harness the power of this platform, AngelList. And she said, sounds great, but I don't really have the time to do it. So if you want to do it, I'll partner with you. And I said, great. So we partnered, and we named it Barbara Corcoran Venture Partners, as I mentioned. What happened after a few years, we noticed, is that a lot of companies were starting to pigeonhole us, and they'd hear Barbara's name in the name of our firm, and they'd think, oh, they only invest in Shark Tank type companies, or they only invest in real estate, which is Barbara's background. But that wasn't the case at all. And so we changed the name a few years after the founding to get away from her identity and be a broader scope. And so we didn't want founders sort of confusing what it is that we do.
Interesting. Well, I think all the students have probably seen an episode of Shark Tank here and there. What's the most interesting thing from the show that you ended up being involved in?
Oh, it's been years since I've consulted with some of those companies from her portfolio, but there was one food truck business that is still doing well today. That was they sell like lobster rolls.
Oh yeah,
you see the guy, I forgot his name. You see the founder on the Food Network all the time, and I remember consulting with them when they were early on, trying to expand out into California from Maine, where they started. So I was helping her with that. She had invested in the company when I think they just had the one food truck. And so I was helping her, consult with them about how to grow and expand their food truck empire.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think smart move on the name, because as you described sort of your general thesis earlier on the show today, that's very different from the companies that her name would likely attract, right?
Yeah.
If you're in B2B software, like you don't see a lot of that stuff on the show because it's not fun TV, right?
Well, that's
it's not
exactly
a
it.
physical
The
product.
show they
you
try to
can't do
make-
a show and tell.
That's
It's
right.
like
Easier
we
to
do
explain
software
products, of course,
for law firms
Software's
or
not so much
something.
fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why we were trying to get away from that idea that we invest only in sort of what I call Shark Tank style companies, or companies that were real estate oriented. Again, that was her background. So we were trying to get away from that, being pigeonholed that way.
Okay, and then I got one more question, then we'll take some questions from the students. So
Sure.
current state of the firm, how active is the firm? How large is the fund? And where are things today?
We invest in I'd say between 8 and 12 companies a year.
Okay.
So, almost one a month, but we're active. We have a portfolio of about 130 active companies. We've invested in more than 200 companies. And we've invested several $100 million over the 15 years. I think it's close to $300 or $400 million this time. Fortunately, we have some companies that have done very, very well. I mentioned one of them, but we've got several, and we have several that are at the early stages that are hopefully going to do just as well. So I feel very fortunate and lucky to be in this position.
Great. And I hope to refer you some great companies right out of our program when they're ready.
Good. I'd love that. And I'm happy to take questions from anyone.
Okay, come on up if you have a question. And first 4 people get a Celsius beverage, of course. While they're coming up, Phil, share the most successful one in the last 12 months. We want to really understand the industry that they're in. A lot of students here could be the next one, of course.
Or the
following
most
one.
promising. It might be hard to say, to predict successfulness, but
Yeah. Well, I'd say one of the fastest growing companies we invested in the last couple of years is called Scan.com. They started in the UK, and what they do, it's not easy to explain, but when you go to get like a CAT scan or an MRI, it's a very convoluted process. Sometimes your doctor will order it. Sometimes you have to contact the radiology center directly. Sometimes your PI attorney will arrange for it. And there's a real gap, and it becomes difficult for the patient to get access quickly and affordably. And Scan.com basically consolidated all of these MRI centers, imaging centers. When I say consolidated, they didn't acquire them. They acquired them as customers. And they said, look, we're going to make this super easy for people and doctors, and we'll handle all the bookings for you, right? And so anytime a doctor or an attorney or a patient needs to book an MRI or a CAT scan or an X-ray, they just go to Scan.com and they find all the centers there, and they can book it very easily. And then they get all their images, all their reporting back through that Scan.com account.
Yeah.
So they launched, as I said, in the UK, but they quickly expanded here. They started in Atlanta. When we invested, I guess it's probably been 18 months now. When we first invested, they had maybe $2 or $3 million in revenue, and now they're well over 100 million in revenue in just a short time, and they're growing like crazy all across the country, all across this country. It's really a big success story, and I would imagine that soon they'll either go public or perhaps be acquired.
that's really exciting. When he first said that, I thought he said scam.com, and I got real excited. I was like, what is this
That's
going
a
to be?
different company entirely.
That's a good one too, I bet. Okay, come on down.
Hi, my name is Trey Williams, and my question is, if you were to invest in 100 deals, how many of them are you expecting to be successful, and what are key indicators for those that succeed and those that fail?
That's a great question. We could talk about that all day,
All
really,
day.
Trey. When I invest in 100 companies, I expect all of them to succeed, of course, but because I wouldn't have invested in them otherwise. But I know the law of numbers, right? I understand the math behind venture capital. And the math behind venture capital is it's a power law, right? You have just a few companies that are huge successes that are going to more than make up for all the companies that don't make it, right? So think of it this way: out of 100 companies, we probably will have 50 or 60 that don't make it. We'll probably have like 30 that do okay. You know, let's call in baseball terms they're singles and doubles, right? And then we're going to have hopefully 10 that are home runs that really make it big. And maybe out of those 10, we have one that we call a grand slam, you know, that really is like the gem. So that's kind of the power law in venture capital. In some firms, it's better or worse. Some firms, you'll have literally like 95 companies that'll go out of business, and you'll have 5 that are such huge successes that they make up for those 95. And those venture firms are typically firms that will invest earlier on, right? And they're willing to take a bigger risk on each company. So they'll have more strikeouts, again, using a baseball analogy, but they'll have bigger home runs when they get those. That's not our mentality at all. Our mentality is we're going to try to reduce risk as much as possible, invest only after they're generating revenue, after they've proven. So we're going to have a little bit fewer strikeouts, but not as big of a hits. Does that make sense?
There's also some variance across industry on the way that kind of stuff plays out. Biomedical or pharmaceutical, the timelines are different.
It's very
the
binary
amounts are
with
different.
those kinds of things.
Exactly.
With a biomedical, you know, they come up with a cure for something, and it's either hit or miss, right? They're going to be a huge success or they're out of business.
Yeah.
It's very binary.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Hello, my name is Kevin Webel, and my
Hey, Kevin.
question is, why did your group kind of choose to focus more on like B2B companies instead of or like you said, you didn't work much with B2C, but
Yeah, early on we did more B2C. And what we found is we're very numbers driven. We're very analytical. And we love recurring revenue, right? And typically in a B2B model, there's more times than not, there's recurring revenue, more times than with B2C. And it's so much easier to measure the data when you have recurring revenue and when you have business users who are sort of subscribers and continual users. And some B2C apps or businesses have that component, like Calm.com, which I mentioned, right? With Calm, you have subscribers. So you have recurring revenue, and we can measure that and look at that. But we like the stickiness of a B2B product typically, and we like the recurring revenue, and we like the data around it, and we found that it's easier to analyze.
one more question. What kind of things do you like do for like a startup or a business? Like when you invest and they need like a lot of help, what kind of things do you
We
do for
primarily
them?
will help with helping them source talent, which is the most difficult thing for a lot of startups, right? Helping them find the best employees they can find. We provide guidance and strategic advice on what markets they should tap into, how they should market, how they can scale. And then we help them with additional fundraising, not just investing ourselves, but helping bring on other venture capital firms or other investors who will invest in their future rounds. So those are some of the things that we do to help them.
Thank you.
Don't forget your Celsius drink.
I'm good.
All right.
He doesn't want too much energy later today.
Yeah, he's got a lot of energy already.
Hi, my name's Justice. It's kind of a two-part question. So you mentioned like sometimes it's a seat on a board for a company.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, we typically don't take
a
board
seat.
seats. No.
Okay.
No.
Do you guys? And then so the second part then would be like, do you guys ever take equity, or is it you guys just fund, or do you guys take equity to help with consulting and stuff like that, or is it only like angel investing, like money wise?
Well, just to clarify your terms, angel investors typically do take equity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when we invest, we either take equity or an equity sort of hybrid, which could be a convertible debt instrument
Okay.
that converts into equity. But the only reason we're investing, the only way that we earn a real return is by having a stake in the business.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was like a loan basis where they have to like pay you back. The
No,
amount. Okay.
no, we don't. The only time we'll do a loan again is if it's a convertible debt, where we can convert, and then we're only interested in the equity side of that.
Okay.
So yeah, we're just focused on equity.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question.
And before the next question, share with the students the timeline that you look for usually on an exit, because I think that's important, right? When you're in
Yeah, that's a common question, and it's so hard to say because different companies have different exit timelines. I mean, it used to be that the typical exit timeline for an early stage company was like 5 to 7 years, but now it's much longer. Companies are staying private for longer. I mean, look at OpenAI and look at Anthropic, and these companies are staying private, and for much, much longer, they're able to raise gobs of money from the private markets. They don't have to go public. And so we're seeing a lot of our portfolios stay private for longer. And then some of them will get acquired along the way, but that's hard to predict when. They have to be a meaningful enough size where they can get acquired, and we hope that they scale to that size quickly enough, but you never know. We've had some companies in the portfolio for 12, 13 years now, and they're getting a little long in the tooth, and we're trying to encourage them to think about exiting. And then we've had some that have been acquired in the first year after we invested.
Nice. How's it going? My
All
name
right.
is Sam. My question to you is, what industry specifically are you looking into this market? And on top of that, with founders, what skills and characteristics are you looking for when you're picking one over another company?
In terms of the markets that we're focused on, we don't pick and choose. We look at are you solving a problem, a big problem, in a meaningful way? Are you doing it in a better way? Are you able to scale? And how are you positioned competitively? So we're agnostic when it comes to markets. We're going to invest where there's an opportunity and where we see a founder or a founding team that has a great opportunity and has a business that they can really scale. Maybe we can add some value. We look for founders with a real passion for what they're doing. That sounds trite. You hear that a lot, but they've got to really know their business well. Even though it's early stage, right? They've got to know their numbers even at that early stage. One major turnoff for me is when we get pitched and I start asking questions and the founders just don't know the numbers. They don't know their business, right? And it becomes difficult for them to know how to scale the business if they don't know what it costs them to acquire a customer, or what their gross margins are, or what their lifetime value is, even at an early stage for their customers. So they've got to get a handle on those things. And it becomes apparent very quickly to us if they have that handle or not. And if they have the passion for the business, why they pick this business, why this product, why this particular solution? How are you going to address the target market? How do you identify them and market to them? So we have pretty rigorous due diligence that we go through, and we really get to know the founders well on a personal level, but on a business level, trying to understand their level of expertise. A lot of times they have experience in the industry, which is very helpful. It's not a requirement, but it's helpful for them to have been around the block a few times in a similar business. And in fact, one of our most successful portfolio companies is this company called Lawmatics, and it's legal tech software for small, medium-sized law firms. And it was started by a guy who's a lawyer who had his own small firm, and he found that he didn't have the solutions for marketing and client intake that he wanted. So he said, I'm going to start it myself. And there are lots of firms out there who will want this, and he was right. So he had the experience in the business. It was born out of his own personal need, But that's not always the case. That was just that one example.
All right. Well, I appreciate your insight.
Oh, thanks for asking the question, Sam.
And to piggyback that, how often are you wrong, right? I think so often.
Well, if you ask my wife all the time.
Of course, me too. But we put ourselves out there and we get advice from one venture capitalist, then the next, then the next. And often you pass, you could be hard on an entrepreneur, but then, they succeed. We see this all the time. So I think it's important sometimes for everybody listening, right? Don't always take, no for an answer, take all advice. There's so much noise in the market, but I'm sure you've passed on so many opportunities, some grand slams, right? So explain to students how you can't always be perfect.
Well, let me just riff off of something that you said, which is that as a founder, it's really important to be passionate, but not closed-minded.
Yes.
Right? You can't be obstinate. I want you to be passionate about what you're doing, but if reality slaps you in the face, you've got to learn to adjust and pivot. You can't be so laser focused on what you're doing that you're willing to drive your company into the ground and go out of business. You have to be willing to pivot and switch the strategies a little bit while still remaining true to your passion. But you've got to be able to be adaptable that way. And that's really, really important. So as you go about the fundraising process and you explain your product to different investors and you hear different advice, conflicting advice from them, you have to filter that, right? You have to filter that through your passion and not be obstinate, but say, okay, maybe is this investor right about what I should do? Or is this one not really getting it and I'm going to ignore that? Yep. You have to be able to sort of navigate that landscape and pick and choose the advice that you want to take that feels right to you, but be open to all of it. Listen, take it all in, and then make your decision about how you're going to adapt.
That's great advice. And it's been a great episode of the Shrimp Tank. Phil, thanks for joining us today. How can people who might want to get in touch with your firm or you get in contact?
Well, of course on OWL, but that's the best way. But I'm also on LinkedIn, so if you want to go on LinkedIn, I'm on there. But OWL, LinkedIn, both good ways, or through our website at forefrontvp.com.
All right. Well, you heard it best. Go hit them up on OWL, of course, where gives you VIP access, because on LinkedIn, right, all of a sudden they're sending as a LinkedIn connection request, so they can't send you a message, right? There's no way to until you hit accept. Or now they get direct access for a few bucks, of course. So thanks for joining us today, Phil.
My pleasure.
And everybody listening, we'll be back next Wednesday at 1:00. Take care.